Because the All-Star game is coming up and we have our own All-Star on the podcast here, it's only appropriate that we get to take a trip into Brian's experience at the 2018 All-Star game, which Brian, I mean, there's a lot of memories, emotions, whether you're a Ranger fan, a Devils fan, Lightning fan, or just a fan of hockey. I think that your story that year captivated so many people that I think everyone was rooting for you personally, especially once you didn't make the team and get in there. So I think we'll just start here. I mean, your journey that season, there was a lot going on. Obviously, your health issues.
Mhm.
Your son had health issues, and yet you came back to the ice. You played with the Devils. You were able to be an active player, which I think was a lot impressive for a lot of people. So that year starting off, I guess, could you have ever imagined where after your diagnosis that you would have gone to the All-Star game representing the Devils?
I had a weird feeling I was going for whatever reason. It was in Tampa before the season, and then I got sick, so I did not think so. Yeah, you know what? It was when I came back and was able to play after I got diagnosed, it was just like one of those things. Everything was kind of going in the net. I had a really good start, and I got to play. And you know, again, we talked about it earlier. We talked about it with your emotional investment and how much like playoffs I loved because I could you just get so excited to play, and you play a lot of hockey games, but when it's seemingly taken from you at one point and you might not play again, then you're like, oh, I'm gonna be all right and I can play again. Like everything, it's just a little pep in your step, man. It's hard to explain, but that adrenaline and that emotion, that positivity was really great. But then like the franchise itself with the Devils, how they treated me, how the from everybody who worked there, including the coaching staff and the general managers and all of the fans. And I know like, I got a lot of love from Rangers fans. I got a lot of love from everyone around the league. It was really remarkable. Teams, players, fans. It was never entered my mind that there was any sort of pressure. It was just me being able to go play, and people were, setting aside their rivalries and, rooting for something that I think was bigger than hockey, really. And you hear stories like this, and you love to hear good outcomes. I mean, when Oscar Lindblom got sick, and then he got to come back and play so soon, it was really, I was like emotional about it. I was so happy for the kid, and stuff like that was so impressive to me. I'd always, it really meant a lot. Whether people just sent a text or something, and that was just like me understanding how thankful and grateful and how lucky I was to be able to do what I got to do for so long, even if it was taken away from me, people reaching out. And so then getting to play, getting to go down there. Yeah, that was a little bit of a hectic day and a day and a half.
Well, so you replaced Taylor Hall. How
Yeah.
did you find out that you were the replacement? Because I mean, there were other guys on the Devils, I'm sure that could have gone down and represented
Yeah.
the club. But yeah, again, like you mentioned, you had this feeling in your mind that there's a chance you were going to go to the All-Star game just because it was in Tampa. But finding out how did that whole process go? Who delivered the news to you?
Yeah. Well, I didn't really think I was going to play in it. I just thought for whatever reason, I was going to be down there. And
Okay.
um, I, I, I was in the hospital with my son. He was going through some more treatments, and it was really not pleasant. And I got a text message,
Mhm.
and I'd come back, and this was like maybe a week before. I forget what it was, but they're like, we need an answer. So I came back. I had a game and talked to Halsey. Halsey, I think, was Taylor Hall's like the first guy to come up to me. He's like, "This is so awesome. I'm so happy you're going." And I'm like, "Dude, this sucks. You can't go to the All-Star game. Like and he won the MVP that year." And um, yeah, it was just such a great guy and a great move by him to let me know. And then they're like, "Hey, we kind of need to know the answer." And my son had to go back
Mhm.
to the hospital again, and we didn't expect that one. And it was so this was a big surgery. He was going to go under, and he was in the ICU. He was under for more than, I think it was probably 36 hours or something. And it was really difficult to leave. Well, I never left until he woke up, and I had to leave this one. So I told my wife right when they told me, I was like, I'm not going. I'm doing this. Um, and she wouldn't let me. She said, you have to do it. And it was not easy getting on the plane. And my dad ended up coming with me. He was really saying, like, you got to go, you got to go. And, you know, in hindsight, they were both right. But I was just like, I can't leave them. This is stupid. This is like, and then, you know, they tried to tell me, you know, it's not just for you. And we're going to have memories. I do have a memory on my phone of him waking up and watching
Oh
those
man.
intros and stuff that were pretty sweet. And he was still only 2 years old. But he's up talking and he's got all these tubes connected to him. And so I'm like, I had my phone on the bench trying to take some photos of guys I knew and being on the ice, knowing I wasn't going to be back there. um, and my wife sent me that, and I'm like about to do the skills thing, and I'm like, oh my god, I can't do it. I got to get off the ice. So I actually had one of the Tampa trainers pour a couple beers in a Gatorade bottle, and I started swigging the beer out of the
And
Gatorade
did
bottle
you
because I'm
really?
like, I got to calm
Wow.
down here after the skills session.
Is that why you came in second place, Brian?
I had that thing won. I missed my easiest shot, dude. High blocker. I could do that in my sleep, and I missed it. I hit the post, and then Besser came in and he clipped me by just a little bit.
I mean, still, I mean, everything going on at that point, at least emotionally and mentally, the fact that you were able to compete and still put on a pretty damn good show to the point where you almost did win. I mean, that's impressive in of itself. One of the things I mentioned to you, because I knew that we'd be talking about this before the show, is that I was looking at just old clips, the reception that you were getting down in Tampa, and you could just tell the love that they felt for you and that they still feel for you. That I believe it was during the skills competition or the you know the competition day where they would pan to you on the jumbotron and then everyone would go crazy and then they'd pan off and then they would either boo or like not acknowledge and then to go back to you like it, what is that feeling like essentially that just outpouring of love that I mean granted it's a lot of Tampa Bay fans I'm sure because that's where the game is but there's also other hockey fans there that you were able to unite you know an entire hockey fan base to be rooting for you. I mean that's wild. That doesn't happen too often for players.
Yeah, it was a weird feeling to be quite honest. Not, I'm like, I kind of wanted it to be done with because there's so many great players there, and they really they put on a show. You know, I love the All-Star game. That actually will. I do have a boiling point. I don't know if I said it last time, but they have they had a profound effect on me, and I'll never forget it. Right, I have, you know, I love my time in New York. And then that All-Star game, just because of everything that went on. My wife said, I got 2 frames. I'm going to frame your jerseys. I never really collected anything or framed anything. And so in my office is the painting with me in Tampa, which I really, really love my time there. And then I got Rangers here. And then over my right shoulder is the All-Star game jersey, just because of what everyone had to, what everyone had to go through so I could go and play there. And, you know, the Devils for thinking of me. Geez, you think it would be it'd be easy to talk about this many years later, 6 years later, or whatever it is. But it was like my wife just hunkering down in a hospital with my daughter, who was 6, 7 months old at the time, um, just kind of along for the ride in her in her stroller. My mom helping out so my dad could come with me because my dad did everything. You know, I'm one of 13 kids, and we didn't have a ton of excess cash, um, to put it plainly. But being able to, like, everything he did for me growing up to play the game. So him coming down and enjoying that. My brother was in school. He drove over. Um, he was in St. Pete. He drove over with his buddy. So just having a couple of people there to share it with, but most importantly, my dad. Would have loved to have my whole family, but it was such a quick turnaround. And, you know, I love the people in Tampa. They were so good to me. It was weird being on a different team. And then later that year playing them in the playoffs. I didn't get as many cheers then. It was just remarkable. And it's hard to play when that's all going on. But I'll never forget those 2 days.
we'll give special props to Mrs. Boyle on this one for hunkering down, being the teammate that
Yeah.
you've had a lot of teammates, but I'm sure she's probably your favorite one that you have so far. And listen, the only thing, speaking of teammates, is that the main memory that I have in my mind from the actual All-Star game, and this again popped up just doing a lot of research on the All-Star game itself. There was a play with Claude Giroux where he has a breakaway, and I think this is in the first or whatnot. And he looked back to possibly pass it to you, but instead of passing back, he took the shot. Did you ever have to bring anything up to me? Like, dude, come on, man. This is like my
No,
one
so
time.
he was unreal, and he like offered to play with me, and I'm like, I'm confident in what I can do, and especially in 3-on-3. Like every guy who's in the NHL has skill level and can play. He was trying to get me a goal so bad, and uh, they just wouldn't let me. Like and it was the Tampa guys I was playing with, and they just took me away the whole way. I was so bad.
They were like, you wore out
So,
your welcome here. You're
so
done.
G ends up finishing and scoring. He's like apologizing to me. I'm like, no, dude, don't. I'm not like it's close to a make a wish, but I'm not a make a wish kid. Like this is like I can play a little. Like we'll figure it out. And I actually I beat Carlson wide and tried to put it between my legs and score on Vasi, and he saved me. And I yelled at him, and he's laughing. So I mean, guys are still going to compete. That maybe not to the level of a regular season because no one wants to get hurt, but there's some pride on the line still.